After the requester has reviewed the design estimate and has provided funding sources in order to satisfy those funds, there will be an additional approval chain that will go up through the cost centers into the department heads and as high as the president if the funds required are large enough. So at this point, no member of the project team needs to intervene in any way, which is why all of our little badges here are currently green. However, we can dive into our all projects in order to take a look at our project in a little bit more detail. So you can see that the project is still in design estimate approval, and we can come in and look at view details in order to get a better picture about what kind of an approval chain is still happening here. So of course we have our initial approval that was done earlier. We also now have this approval chain here for the design estimate. So you can see that the requester has already approved. We have now moved on to one of the two cost center heads that need to respond to this as well. So in this case, you can see that this is the current outstanding approval, but we also have a second cost center head that needs to review this, mostly because of the two different funding sources that were provided by the requester. Once that approval has also been given, you can see that it'll go up as high as the CFO/Chief of Staff. Now, to better understand this chain, though, let's go ahead and change our filter to show all, regardless of status. And you'll see that there are two additional items that appear that are in purple. Any purple item will be skipped, and the text in the body actually explains why it is being skipped. So in this case, what's happening here is that this individual, Marco, would normally be expected to approve all of the funding because he is the Dean/VP. However, he also serves at the level above that in the CFO Chief of Staff role. So rather than sending two different approvals out and having the same individual having to come in and mark something as approved, it skips any lower levels and basically goes to the highest level that that person needs to provide approval for. You also see that the very highest level, being the president, is also being skipped because the threshold is not being met. So if you'll remember, the design estimate was coming out to $240,000, and the president only gets involved if the funds required are above $250,000. So that's why he is being skipped. Now, one of the things you're not really seeing here is that both of these cost centers actually report to the same dean or VP. So that is not being shown as being skipped, but basically whenever the same individual is serving in the same role, coming up through different chains of the approval, they will also just be combined into one. So that was combined into one role, and then it was skipped because that individual is also the Chief of Staff or CFO. So we can change our filter back to our required approvals, and rather than going through all of the emails and walking through this process one step at a time, let's just go ahead and mark all of these items here as approved. So again, as a member of the project team, I can do this, though in production this may not actually happen. So with all of those things there marked as approval, I'm just going to go ahead and refresh the list because there is one other thing I'd want to point out, and that is you can see that the email was sent to the requester here, and the response came from that same requester. So because I came in as a member of the project team and marked these things as approved, you'll see that the approval email went out to one email address, but the response actually came from somebody else. So that's how you can tell whether the individual in question actually came in and marked it as completed or whether this was just done by the project team. Perhaps they were in communication with that individual. So now that all of those approvals have been given, we can come back to our dashboard and we should see that the project has basically advanced and we're ready for the next step.